All right, and for everyone joining us, there are a few options for you to ask questions. We have the normal Zoom chat, so if that's what you're accustomed to, please feel free to use that. We also have, oh, and in the Zoom chat, where you have the little drop down to select who it goes to, if you would like everyone to see it, please select all panelists and attendees. Otherwise, just your panelists will see it. We also have the Q&A, which is similar, typing it in. And then we also have an option for you to raise your hand and actually ask questions with audio for those questions that are kind of hard to type into words.
So let's give it another minute.
Oh, and as everyone's joining in, if you want to share with us where you're joining us from, we would love to know who all we have with us.
I think there are people from all around the world. So, yeah.
So welcome. So,
oh, from Madrid.
Welcome to everyone. I guess we should start. Jillian Howell, our associate curator, was giving some housekeeping. As she said, please ask your questions on the Zoom chat or the Q&A. I guess at the end, there will be some time for actual questions if people raise their hands. But let's get started. First, I want to thank, as always, Mendel and Sandy Rosenberg for their support of this ongoing film program. And we will be continuing this series throughout the year remotely. The next film will be at the end of July. Stay tuned for more information about that. It will focus on the work of Claude Lanzmann, the filmmaker of the documentary Shoah. And again, there will be more information about that. It's a great pleasure and honor to introduce our speaker today. Pierre Martin has been involved in this film program since its very beginnings, more than 25 years ago. He's also been involved at the Holocaust Museum in various capacities, on our exhibition committee, on various other committees. So we want to thank him for his ongoing involvement in the Holocaust Museum and Learning Center, now the Kaplan Feldman Holocaust Museum, over these many years. Pierre describes himself as the Unlearning Specialist at the School of No Media. Beside Yad Vashem, he has lectured on his work at the Museum of Modern Art, the Carnegie Museum, the Walker Art Center, and other arts institutions. He has taught at several major universities, including the Art Institute of Chicago and Washington University. Pierre's father, Ervin Marton, was with the French Résistance. And again, it's a great pleasure to introduce Pierre to discuss and share insights on the film, The Black Book. Thank you.
Thank you to the Sandra and Mendel Rosenberg series. It's essential to have these film series, and I'm glad it's been going on for this long. I want to salute a fellow friend and filmmaker, Miriam Abramovitz. I also want to dedicate this presentation to Dr. Emmanuel Ringenblum and to Father Patrick Desbois. I will, at the end of our session, I will give you, or Jillian will give you some links. I don't want to distract us with links and people surfing the web, but most of everything that I will say will be you can find out these names if I mispronounce them to your ears and you don't know what I'm saying, you will find out at the end. So this is, I want to say that this is the most difficult presentation ever made on a Holocaust film. And why? Because it's a film that's really a history film, a film about a history book. And I've never had to deal with this kind of head-on. I've dealt with artistic films or documentaries, but this is, I have to face history and acknowledge the power of historians and the awe that I feel when you consider what was done by witnesses. I believe witnesses are historians, filmmakers are historians, journalists are historians. Like the two main figures in the film are journalists. And so it's critical to realize that without them we are ignoramus. We know nothing. And so what I want to say is thank you, and the main lesson here is I know nothing, and I think that's the lesson of most people who start studying anything. You realize you know nothing. So I was going to start this presentation by speaking about how the skies above us, and we feel dwarfed generally by the skies. We feel very, very small. Well, the word disaster in French is désastre. You can even hear in the French word astre, the asterisk, the star, the word star. So a disaster is, which is one translation of Shoah, or Nakba in Arabic. A disaster is something that you are very small by nature. So I want to keep the size of my speech, the size of or the scale, I should say, the scale of my speech, of our discussion at that level, meaning I do not want to stand on any kind of podium and platform and make speeches and create positions. That is absolutely against what I think. One can only stand tiny and frail. So let me speak about the film and the genesis of it. Some of you are aware of a project that Father Patrick Desbois did for, I think, 14 years. You can correct me if I'm wrong. But for about 14 years, Father Desbois, and I can go into the details of why he did that later, but he went to Ukraine and all these states that were part of the Soviet Union, but he started in Ukraine in a town called Ravaruska, where his grandfather was a prisoner during World War II. And Father Desbois, unlike Father the Cardinal in Lustiger, is not a converted Jew. He's a Catholic, and so he felt he needed to dig into this story of what happened over there. So basically, the filmmaker, Guillaume Ribot, is the photographer for 4 years. That's what I believe, the amount of time he was a photographer. And if you look at the book that was published on the Shoah by bullets inside, you will see many photographs, and those are taken by Guillaume Ribot. So for many years, they wandered all around Ukraine and other places to find out what had happened, because it had not been documented, it had not been written anywhere as to what really took place. So this process took a long time, as I said, 14 years. And the book that they used to try to piece together any kind of story of what happened where was the Black Book of Soviet Jewry, which has different titles in English. And that's what you see in the film, the story of the Black Book. So the Black Book became the map, and it's a very disturbing book. And I watched, I read on Amazon the reviews of people. Some people say, well, I can't read it, it's too hard. And effectively, it's very hard to read. But also some people say, it's the same story over and over and over. Yes, it is a book of testimonies. It is not a book, as it says in the film, where the Soviet government says, if it's good, we will publish it. And Ehrenburg says, good? This is not about being good. This is testimonies. So it's a disturbing book. And I had minimal contact with the filmmakers, the screenwriter, the editor. But what I can say, kind of logically, that Guillaume Ribot was so disturbed by what he had been a witness, secondary witness, if you want to call it, so what am I trying to say? Got disturbed by a text here. What I want to say is that being disturbed by the Black Book is what pushed him to make this film. And he got together what you would say in French, in sacrée belle équipe, a crew, outstanding crew. The producer Estelle Fialon is, maybe I will even show you her picture, because I think I have it ready to go. Do I? I had it ready to go, but maybe I will not show you. But it's on my website anyway. You can see a picture of Estelle Fialon and Guillaume Ribot and Antoine Germain, the screenwriter. So Estelle Fialon also produced a fantastic Israeli documentary called The Gatekeepers. And the screenwriter, the co-screenwriter, Antoine Germain, is an amazing scholar of the Holocaust for his own reasons, and has written other screenplays. And actually right now, the reason I've had limited contact with them is they are in the middle of writing another film. So they made the film. It won prizes and nominations, among others, one that's for best reuse of historical footage, if you want. That's maybe a place where I can say that the film involves a lot of Soviet cinema classics, Dziga Vertov, Dovzhenko, Eisenstein. You even maybe caught there were two frames or two shots of Eisenstein in the film when the anti-Jewish committee, anti-fascist committee is speaking. The Jewish anti-fascist committee is speaking, gathering. You see Eisenstein, but there is no mention of him by himself. So the film basically shows you the saga, and the title in French is Life and Fate, because it's really a saga. The title comes from Vassilli Grossman's book, Life and Fate. So in English, it's simplified. Someone I spoke to recently said that I should make sure that people understand that Vassilli Grossman is not just a writer, but is considered not just one of the best writers from Russia, but one of the best writers of the 20th century. And I have actually on my phone a passage where you can see the kind of prose, but maybe some of you were already sensitized either to his writing or realized when they heard there are four major actors speaking in the film, and the voice of Vassilli Grossman is Mathieu Amalric, who, along with the others, is a incredibly well recognized and a fantastic voice for Grossman. So there is a tension that I want to bring up, and we can discuss it later, but a tension between Ehrenburg on many levels. We can speak about it politically, but more importantly here, there is the tension between Ehrenburg, who wants to be a journalist and report, bring what is said by the survivors. And Grossman says, no, we can do more than that. And he's basically appealing to the writing skills, his own writing skills and the writing skills. There was a group of more than 30 writers who helped them, but the main authors, the main leaders of that project were Grossman and Ehrenburg. So Ehrenburg is pushing for pure documentation, and Grossman says no, as you heard in the film. He's saying, no, we have to give voices to the dead. And the passage that I was going to play, I'm not sure if I will because it takes 3 minutes to play, is a passage at the end of his text about Treblinka, which is in the Black Book, and you can see, feel details. You really feel that he's speaking for the dead, which we're not speaking about anything spooky here. We're just speaking about writing in such a way that there is an homage paid to the dead. So you can ask me questions about the film afterwards. I want to also bring up something that I think is critical about this film and why this film is so important, not only because the fact that so many American Jews come from those regions, but also because it is, as I often use the image of Uncola versus Coca-Cola, the Uncola 7-Up. It's a kind of publicity campaign a while back, but this is the Auschwitz. Most people know Auschwitz. Auschwitz is an icon, and it's considered the Holocaust symbol. When I was over there, I picked up 2 postcards. You can see that people, if they know one word about the Holocaust, they may know Auschwitz, and so you have a kind of simplified way to think about it. And I have even created a mind map where little bubbles of concepts, which I will share maybe at some point. But the whole principle of knowing what the Shoah, which is the French Hebrew, the French use more the word Shoah after the film by Claude Lanzmann. Shoah means catastrophe. In Hebrew, and basically the Shoah, the Holocaust, is kind of contained by one word. What is very clear and what is incredibly dangerous, and as we heard recently in American politics, good trouble. The good trouble is that there are no borders in the Shoah by bullets. uh, and this no borders. It's messy. It's messy in the worst sense of the word, and you cannot contain it. You cannot put it in one word, and it invades your mind, your heart, and it bleeds. It takes over, and you cannot feel. What's the word? You cannot feel like you know anything. If anything, you know nothing after exploring any of this. So this place of not knowing, I think, is a very important place to be. My school of unlearning, or school of no media, is about not knowing, but not knowing in a knowing way, if I can put it this way. So what I'm trying to say is something that actually was very good to have from. There's someone who I tried to contact, but I didn't get a response from him, Joshua Robinstein, who has published one of the versions of the Black Book. His version is called the Unknown Black Book. And in it, he highlights the fact that the Holocaust was quite messy and traumatic for the German soldiers. It was too hard, even if they did it, while having music and drink and food as they went from village to village. It was messy. And if they were going to get rid of the Jews of Western Europe, they could not follow this same mode of extermination. They had to be much more industrial, if I can put it that way. And so they created, the gas chambers, and a much more. Then they could ship Jews from France, Holland, Belgium, everywhere in Western Europe, and take them to be gassed in the most populated Jewish country, which was Poland. And so they could be much more efficient than driving with the so-called Einsatzgruppen. And this is something I want to mention. A friend of mine, the filmmaker, historian, very brave historian and filmmaker, Mikhoels, has made a series of 4 pieces called Einsatzgruppen, EINSATZ, but if you look under Prazan, Prazan, you will find him on Netflix. I believe it may be also on Amazon Prime. And these are the films that this film, The Black Book, doesn't do. The Black Book is beautiful. It's contained. The Einsatzgruppen 4 pieces is kind of very hard to watch. At least the very first episode is probably almost impossible to watch. So this brings up also the whole issue of what can we stomach, and what is the point of having depressing news, if you want to kind of say it in a sarcastic way, meaning that a book like The Black Book is absolutely depressing. Does it make sense to have depressing books or films that basically challenge us? And I'm sure this will be part of the topic later. I'm going to ask a controversial question, because I don't see why we shouldn't ask it. Why speak about the Holocaust? Why is the Holocaust still a topic so many years later? So I'm bringing up all of this, and maybe I can say some more things, but this is a beginning, maybe to say, let me hear you. Yeah. Hello. Is anybody there?
So if anyone has questions regarding the film, oh, we've got a raised hand from Richard Rubin. You should be good to go now.
Thank you. Pierre, I just have a technical question about the film, but first I have an observation, which is a response to your comment. The film itself is the story of a triumph, not a disaster, because it's the survival of the book. And in that way, it's a kind of celebratory film, even though the story it recounts, or the story that the book recounts, is of atrocities and disasters. My technical question is, or just historic, how did they happen to have so many films of Ilya Ehrenburg?
Well, I don't think they have that much footage of theirs. There are a lot of stills in there, but I don't think it's that much. You know, they squeezed out whatever they could out of that. I don't think, yeah. I mean, they were very famous. They were the most famous journalists working on the battlefield. So,
well, then their editing is superb. So.
Oh yeah, she edited. Svetlana Blatt, I believe is her name. It's amazing. You know, being Russian Jewish, I think she had a special way of working with this footage. Yeah. And she's worked with on other movies, Mesrin, and even the Polanski film, The Pianist. Anyway, so a great crew, yeah.
Right, we've got a hand from Paul Schrader.
Pierre, I didn't understand your question. You know, the obvious answer is, well, of course you've got to talk about it and remember it, or it'll happen again. But that's too, facile an answer. What are you really looking for when you say, why would we want to continue to talk about the Holocaust? I just don't understand.
This is a topic that many of us could be involved with. Very often the question is this a Jewish topic, or is the Holocaust relevant to everyone? And sometimes you will hear people saying, no, it is not relevant to me. I know what there is to know about the Holocaust. And you will look at Professor Jan Grabowski, who said very clearly, I read recently, when he started studying the Holocaust, he thought he was not going to find out anything new. And the topic is kind of endless, like anything that I think is worth exploring. You find out that it's a bottomless pit, and you can keep researching. So from my perspective, what I want to bring up is that I made a piece on men and violence a long time ago, a video piece, and one of the speakers, John Stoltenberg, says that the violence that was done to men is a form of empathy training, and so that if, from my perspective, if you go into, if we can call it the abyss of human history, and I should say the abysses, it's a strange way to speak, you can open up to what is so fragile and so precious about life. And so that's not for me to say who should do this, but obviously it's people who will have the capacity to go there. I'm not, as I said, don't want to take any kind of slogan or platform or position, but if anything, it's a sort of when I say empathy, it means be very small and realize that there is a lot of small people out there and a lot of damage or horror that is present. So the compassion that you can have from having been victimized is one way to open up to others, and it's not in any way a way to shut out others and say, I'm going to defend myself. That's maybe the most position-like thing that I can say is against closing down, but about opening up more and more. Okay.
Right, we have a question in the Q&A from Sarah Burke about Jewish theater in Russia. How important was it? Was it a form of resistance? Why did the writers include the theater and the King Lear footage?
Well, I think it's significant that King Lear dies, and it's very tragic, and you see him dying just before he actually will be killed. So the King Lear footage has, of course, a resonance, tragic resonance, but the Yiddish theater or Yiddish work all over Europe. You know, I love a film from Poland called The Dybbuk, Edgar Ulmer, who is a well-known filmmaker in Hollywood, before he came to Hollywood, was making Yiddish films. So there was a huge, or Lisitsky, one of the constructivist stars of Russian art, who made Haggadah, meaning Passover books for kids. The culture, the Yiddish culture, was part of mainstream culture. It was not ghettoized. It was lived. It was people were proud of Yiddish, and I believe, and some people can correct me, but I believe that not just Jews went to Yiddish theater or watched Yiddish films. So there was a kind of openness of the culture, a liveliness. It was not in any way a ghetto culture, to answer Sarah's question. Yeah.
We've got another question coming from Jay Lists. I believe you should be allowed to talk now, or did I?
Yeah, no, you got me right.
There we go.
Yeah, sorry. This was some film. I mean, I watched it and went back and forth to make sure I was understanding things correctly. It was beautiful. It was informative. I learned a lot. And the thing is, I thought I knew quite a bit about what had happened way back then, but I learned some new things watching this. The images were not as horrific as some of the images I've seen in some other films, recent films, but they were still very interesting and fit well because of how it was edited. Two things I'd like to say, three things actually. Thank you for doing this. Thanks for the analysis, but also I think it's important to acknowledge the fact that what this film shows about how the Jews in Russia were treated really shows a camaraderie and how those things happen to other groups around the world. And so I saw so many similarities in that. That was one. The other thing is I thought I knew quite a bit, not everything, but as I watched the film, I realized that I did not know about just how mean and nasty Stalin was. And so my question to you, Pierre, is how well known is that? Did I just miss the boat by not knowing that he was so anti-Semitic?
You
You didn't know that?
yeah, I don't think it's about missing the boat or anything like that. There's so many things we don't know. I am part of that club. Repeatedly, I can open a book and go, oh, really? Oh, I didn't know. So don't. There are so many things. There are more things we don't know than things we know, and one of my kind of the principle that I fight for is that the minute you say I know, what you're acknowledging is that you don't know, because
Yes.
it's actually the opposite.
Yes.
It's a much better, much more interactive way to work through life, is to acknowledge you don't know, and you need to know, and you need to keep studying and reading and opening your ears and your heart and all of that. So yeah, you're not alone in that not knowing. Yeah, it is why so many Jews who were communists at some point dropped out, and I know many who just said at that moment, when it was clear that no, the brotherhood of men, of course, it's women too, but the brotherhood of men is not as simple as you claim it to be. And I was involved in a long time ago, I mean, in a film called The Man Without the World, The Man Without the World, and it's about that that shtetl life and the kind of dreams that some people had of being a little bit like, my father was a Esperantist. The Esperanto was a universal language created by Zamenhof, optometrist, a man with vision, who devised a language that could create a world where language was not a barrier. Of course, it was more Western based language than Eastern, but there are still Esperanto speakers. But the brotherhood of man, or the no borders, that fraternity and sorority is a dream that many people, especially in the 30s, people went after.
Yeah, the other thing, quick thing is, I'm just wondering what the plans are to have this film shown more and in more places. Because I think everyone should see it.
I have no idea. I'm really glad that because of COVID, we were able to have more than just a local screening, because I would have been able to tell you there's a film here in St. Louis, come and visit. But this way, we have people in very different parts of the world who are able to see that. It depends on the distributor. The distributor is in France, in Paris, and I have no idea. I saw it on French TV last December. I thought it would be appropriate. There was an English version subtitled, although the subtitles at the beginning, when they say, I don't know if they were trying to make, they don't say Jewish committee, they say a committee of intellectuals, Soviet intellectuals, but it's a Jewish committee. So I don't know why that was. The film, what I want to say is, Guillaume Ribot is not Jewish. And I think we need more these kind of intercultural voices, to have non-Jews speak about Jews, Jews speak about whatever, meaning we cannot be ghettoized with our interest, and the film I hope will be seen. I think a place like YIVO in New York, because of the Yiddish aspect, would be a perfect place. But we'll see. I'm not in charge of that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure. We have one more question here, or no?
So there are a few questions in the chat that kind of get to the idea of national narratives. The idea that maybe Stalin did not want to open up this branch of documentation that could later point to atrocities perpetrated by the Soviet state, elements of the Holocaust that we see reflected in today's society, and that this lesson is still totally relevant. And also the idea that Vassilli Grossman's name is not widely known. Why aren't his writings used more frequently in Holocaust education? He often seems forgotten.
Yeah, so the first question is about what is it again?
About Stalin, the idea
national narratives and all that. Yeah, I think national narratives is a topic that's still very much there. In Europe, you have, of course, Russia still controlling its national narrative. My family is from Hungary. Hungary does the same right now, very tightly controlling that. You have Poland, and you could even go into Israel. National narratives are a way to control what is being said about a country, when in fact there's often very, very complex issues that need to be heard, and that take time to be looked at. And the business of iconic image or flag waving in any kind implies that you can stand behind and almost, I would say, blind yourself with your national narrative. So yes, Stalin didn't have the space to include Jews as a people. They were, when I visited Auschwitz, it was still a Soviet communist country, and so they were anti-fascist. Everything was against fascism, and it was nothing else. There was no Jewish dimension, and so minorities are trouble for the majority. Any minority bothers the majority by definition, because you make things too complex, too complicated. It's not easy to make a speech, And the second question was what?
I really think that you kind of hit right on it there. The idea that there are elements similar to what we saw in the Holocaust being implemented today, and just the fact that it's really
about Grossman not being as well known. Well, most of my friends who have read Grossman rave about him. Now, whether it is that it is people who are more into literature or world literature that have read him and to use an expression I don't use very often, floored by him or awed by him, I cannot say. I mean, Holocaust education, I am not a Holocaust educator, even though I've been doing this kind of work for a long time. I'm afraid, I've attended and participated at Holocaust conferences. I'm afraid that the same narrative that reduces things in digestible, I don't know if sound bites is the way to say it, but things that can be understood by children is I think the way that education history is spread. So that creates a problem, a huge problem. Yeah.
all right. I think we have time for one more question if anyone wants to. Okay, so we've got one here from Ethan Bumas. So he's talking about the inclusion of King Lear and the Russian theater. He says none of this, as far as he can tell, is actually in the book called The Black Book, but is added to the movie to create their narrative. And he supposes that that's creating the before picture so that the audience will know what the Germans and collaborators destroyed. Does it weaken the film that it assumes we have to learn what the tragedy has destroyed, that we don't know what we lost?
No, I mean, you know, I will say something kind of parallel to some of that. You know, very often I read the obituaries and I find out somebody that was amazing just died, and so most of the time we are not aware of what we are losing all the time because so much is being lost. We're not talking about climate here, but it's basically the same kind of constant losses. And yeah, I don't think, I mean, this is, I think of Montaigne, who wrote in the 16th century about the fact that we're all commenting on commentaries. Everything is just on the level of commentaries. The issue is that we cannot make a film about the Black Book. If it people would turn it off in 2 seconds. It would never see the light. So the filmmakers had to devise a way to make it palatable with tramway cars and bells and of course the beginning is, I can get chills thinking of the images from Dovzhenko's Earth, the field moving. That tells you that there's something bigger and something that is present, and whether it is life or death, but there's an energy that's there. So yes, a filmmaker has to become lyrical in order to entrance people to keep seeing the story. So it's only about the Black Book, not the Black Book at all. The Black Book would not last a second on the screen. It would be too much. So my hope is that that as it says in Jewish tradition, people can go and study, can get hold of the Black Book and maybe not read it every day, but keep it there and know that it's there and be aware, because unfortunately it's just one such book in the world. Yeah. So that was our last question?
I believe so. We are about at the end of our time.
Okay.
Dan, do you have a wrap up?
If there are any other questions, we got kind of a late start. So if there's a last question or two, we'll certainly take it. As Pierre just said, this presentation for many or watching the film is an introduction to this subject, and he's made reference to Father Desbois and his ongoing research, and so it's in a way this opens the door to a complex but very profound study. So if there are other questions, if you think of something later, don't hesitate to send a question to me at the museum, and I'll pass it on to Pierre and get an answer for you. Let me thank all of you for attending today and for watching the film. And of course, I want to thank Pierre for his very profound and insightful comments and his presentation this afternoon. So were we going to provide more resources?
Links, yeah, links. I don't know if Jillian has an easy way to send some of those links to
So I
people?
have just added the 2 links in the chat. If anyone would like to click on them, they'll open up in your browser so that you can look at them at your leisure.
Right. One of them is my website, and another one is the website of Yachad in Unum, which is the website where you see the maps of 1,849 sites that Father Desbois has already documented. So these are amazing, amazing data that's quantified, visible. So I would say go and study and explore and learn. So thank you so much.
Thank you all. We'll again continue to show films in this format through the year, and hopefully after the museum reopens in summer of 2022, we'll be back on site. Thank you all.
Thank you.